Welcome back. I am Daniel, and this started when I was 32. At that point in my life, I thought I had everything figured out. I had a demanding career, a stable home, and a wedding coming up with the woman I believed I would spend the rest of my life with. My fiancée, Lila, was 31, brilliant, polished, and the kind of person who could walk into any room and make it feel like she belonged there. We had been together for nearly 5 years, and for most of that time, I felt lucky just to be near her. We were both lawyers, which meant our lives were busy in a way that never really slowed down. Long hours, difficult clients, last-minute calls, and the kind of stress that follows you home even when you try to leave it at the office. But somehow we made it work. We had routines. We had little traditions. We would cook together when we could, leave each other notes, and protect our weekends like they were sacred. It was not a perfect life, but it felt solid. It felt earned. My brother Mason was part of that life too. He was 3 years younger than me, and we had always been opposites. I was the serious one, the planner, the one who studied hard and tried to do everything the right way. Mason was the charming one, the reckless one, the one who could talk his way out of almost anything. Growing up, he was always the one causing trouble while I was the one cleaning it up. Even as adults, that dynamic never fully disappeared. Still, I loved him. He was my brother. That mattered to me more than I ever admitted out loud. And because he was family, I wanted to believe the best about him, even when he gave me reasons not to. Lila and Mason knew each other, of course. We all did. He had met her early in our relationship, and while I never thought they were close, I also never imagined I needed to worry about them. That is the part that still makes me shake my head now. I trusted both of them. I genuinely trusted both of them, and honestly, I thought everything was fine. I really did. The year I proposed to Lila was supposed to be the happiest year of our lives. Instead, it became the year everything started to tilt. Lila lost her job first. It happened after the company found out she had broken some internal rules. I am not going into the details because it was personal, but the result was the same. They let her go, and they did it without much ceremony. One day she was thriving, respected, and completely in control. The next, she was home with a box of her things and a face I had never seen before. Not angry, not even embarrassed, just hollow. That loss hit her hard. Work was not just work for Lila. It was her identity, her pride, her proof that she could outwork anyone in the room. She had always been the kind of person who measured herself by achievement, and when that was taken away, it was like the floor dropped out from under her. She tried to hide it at first, but I could see it in the way she moved through the apartment, quiet and tense, like she was trying not to fall apart in front of me. I did everything I could think of to help. I told her we were engaged now, that finances would be okay, that she did not need to panic. I told her to breathe, to rest, to give herself a little grace. I meant every word. I wanted to be the kind of partner who made her feel safe when life got ugly. She nodded, and for a while I thought she was listening. Instead, she threw herself into job hunting with a kind of intensity that scared me. She applied everywhere: firms, corporations, consulting roles, anything remotely connected to her specialty. But her field was narrow, and the circumstances of her dismissal did not help. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. The silence from employers became its own kind of punishment. Looking back now, I should have seen how much that isolation changed her. At the time, I just thought she was stressed. I did not realize stress can make people reach for anything that feels like relief. That was when she started pottery. It began as a hobby, something to fill the empty hours. She found a local class and started going a few evenings a week. She came home with clay on her sleeves and a little spark in her eyes that I had not seen in months. I was relieved, honestly. It felt good to see her interested in something again. I told myself she needed this. She deserved something that was hers. That class was also where she met Mason. At first, I did not think much of it. He was there too, apparently taking the same class. Mason had always been the kind of guy who could make friends anywhere, so I assumed he was just being friendly. He offered to pick her up or drop her off sometimes, which I thought was a little odd but not alarming. He would mention class in passing, and Lila would come home talking about the pieces they made, the glaze colors, the mistakes they laughed about. It sounded harmless. Then it started to spread beyond the class. She and Mason began going to museums on weekends. They tried new restaurants. They found little places around town that I had never heard of. At first, I told myself it was just a coincidence that they liked the same things. But then I noticed how often she mentioned him. How quickly his name started appearing in conversations that used to be about us. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. The first time I really felt uneasy was when she canceled a date night because Mason had invited her to something else. She told me it was no big deal, that it was just a casual outing, but I remember sitting at the table alone, staring at 2 plates of food cooling in front of me and feeling something in my chest go tight. I did not want to be jealous. I did not want to be controlling, but I also did not want to be foolish, so I asked her. I asked her directly if something was going on between her and Mason. She looked offended, not guilty, not nervous. offended. She told me I was being ridiculous, that Mason was like a younger brother to her, that I was reading too much into it because I was stressed from work. She said she understood why I was worried, but there was nothing to worry about. She even looked hurt that I would suggest such a thing. And I hated that I believed her for a second, because I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe the woman I loved more than anything would not lie to my face. I wanted to believe my brother would not betray me, so I backed off. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was letting work and wedding stress make me suspicious. But deep down, the doubt stayed. Then the wedding planning got heavier. Because Lila still did not have a new job, I took on almost everything financially. The apartment, the bills, the venue deposits, the endless little wedding expenses that somehow add up faster than anyone warns you about. I worked longer hours to cover it all. I was exhausted all the time. I was barely home, and that made me feel guilty because part of me knew I was not giving Lila as much attention as I should have. But I also felt trapped. I was carrying the pressure of our future on my shoulders while trying to keep my own life from collapsing under the weight of it. That detail matters. Remember it. The more I worked, the more Lila leaned on Mason for company. At least, that is what I told myself. I was too tired to argue over every strange little thing, too busy to follow every instinct, too determined to keep the wedding on track. I kept believing that if I just got through this stretch, things would settle down again, but they did not settle down. They got worse. 2 months before the wedding, I came home early from a business trip. I had been looking forward to surprising Lila. I even bought her favorite takeout on the way back, thinking we could sit together, talk, and maybe finally feel normal again. The drive home felt quiet in that hopeful way that makes you imagine a better evening before it even starts. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Mason's car. That made me pause, but not enough to turn around. He had a habit of dropping by unannounced, and I told myself this was probably one of those times. Still, it was late. Later than usual, and something about seeing his car there at that hour made my stomach tighten. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was dark except for the television in the living room. I could hear faint laughter somewhere deeper inside. Then I noticed the beer cans on the floor. Then I saw Lila's clothes, not neatly folded, not casually left out, scattered, haphazard, wrong. My body went cold. I did not want to know. I did not want to see, but I kept walking. Every step toward the bedroom felt heavier than the last. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I remember thinking maybe this is not what it looks like. Maybe there is an explanation. Maybe I am about to embarrass myself by being suspicious again. Then I reached the doorway, and then it happened. Lila and Mason were in my bed. I did not need anyone to explain that to me. I saw enough in 1 second to understand everything. The room felt smaller. The air felt thinner. My hands went numb. Mason looked up first. His face changed instantly. Lila froze. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them moved. It was like time stopped just long enough for the truth to settle into the room. I walked in. I grabbed Mason by the back of the neck and yanked him off the bed. He stumbled. He started saying my name. He started apologizing. I did not hear any of it. I hit him once, then again, hard. He fell backward. Blood coming from his nose, and I remember the sound more than anything else. Sharp, wet, final. He tried to shield himself. He tried to crawl away. I kept going. Then I turned to Lila. She was crying already. She kept saying my name like it could stop what was happening. She kept reaching for me, then pulling back, then reaching again. I told her she had 10 minutes to get out of my house. 10 minutes. That was all she got. She begged me to listen. I told her 9 minutes. That was the moment she understood I was serious. She scrambled off the bed, shaking so badly she could barely stand. She started throwing clothes into a suitcase with trembling hands. Mason was still on the floor, holding his face, and I was so furious I could barely see straight. I did not trust myself to stay in that room much longer. When Lila finally came downstairs, she was crying so hard she could not breathe properly. She asked me to let her explain. She said she loved me. She said she never meant for this to happen. She said she deserved a chance. I took the engagement ring off her finger. I opened the front door. I pushed her out. She stumbled onto the porch, still begging, still crying, still trying to say something that would make any of it better. I slammed the door before she could finish. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring at the wood in front of me, trying to understand how my life had split in half. Mason was still inside, bleeding and miserable. I did not want to do anything worse, so I called my parents. My dad was furious. My mom was shocked. They came over right away. My mom cleaned Mason's face because she is a nurse, and my dad pulled me outside because he could see I was shaking. I was not calm. I was not collected. I was trying very hard not to break something. Then Mason came outside. He apologized. He said he had not meant for things to happen this way. Then he said the words that made my blood run cold. He said he was in love with Lila. I stared at him like he had lost his mind. Then he showed me their messages, flirty texts, secret plans, Lila telling him she was unhappy with me, Lila saying things I still cannot believe she wrote. Mason said she had invited him over that night because she thought I would still be away. I felt sick. My dad finally snapped at him. He told Mason he had disgraced himself. He told him he should be ashamed. My mom, though, did not react the way I expected. She looked torn, but I could already see where her loyalty was leaning. Mason had always been her favorite. That never changed. She told me I needed to forgive him. I remember looking at her and realizing she was not seeing me at all. She was seeing the family she wanted, not the son who had just been destroyed in his own bedroom. I told them both to leave, and they did. In the weeks that followed, Lila kept texting me. She apologized, she explained, she begged. Every message felt like another hand reaching through the wreckage, asking me to help her stand up after she had helped destroy the floor beneath me. I ignored most of them. Then Mason called. He told me Lila was pregnant. He said the baby was his. He said he wanted to marry her and asked for my blessing. I actually laughed at first because I thought he had to be joking. He was not. My mother was thrilled. That part hurt in a different way. She started talking about how maybe this was God's plan, how maybe Mason and Lila were meant to be, how the baby changed everything. I remember feeling like I was standing in a room full of people speaking a language I no longer understood. I told her if she sided with them, our relationship was over. I meant it, and I did cut them off. Mason and Lila got married. My mother helped make it happen. Invitations went out to relatives. I was furious, humiliated, and exhausted by the whole thing. My dad stayed quieter than I wanted him to, which felt like its own kind of betrayal. My mom kept calling. She kept leaving messages. She even showed up at my place uninvited more than once. I could not breathe with all of it hanging over me, so I left. I moved to a different city, changed my number, and started over with almost no one from my old life except my dad. He respected my decision, even if it hurt him. I built a new routine, new friends, new habits. I worked hard to become someone who did not flinch every time a memory came back. For a while, it worked. Then 3 years later, Lila showed up at my door. She looked nothing like the woman I had once known. She was thinner, worn down, and tired in a way that seemed to come from years rather than days. Her clothes were shabby. Her hair looked neglected. She was holding the hand of a little girl who could not have been more than 2 or 3. The child had Mason's face. That was the first thing I noticed. The eyes, the shape of the mouth, the same sharp little features that made my stomach turn. Lila asked if she could come in. I almost said no, but the child was staring up at me and I could not bring myself to turn them away in that moment, so I let them in. She sat on my couch and handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from my mother. She wrote that it was my responsibility to fix what Mason had broken. She wrote that Lila and the child were struggling. She wrote that I was the uncle, that I should step up, that family should help family. I felt something in me go very still. Lila then told me the rest. Mason had been unfaithful throughout their marriage, not once, repeatedly. She said she had tried to make it work for the sake of their daughter, Jessie. Then 3 months ago, Mason had left, no warning, no note, no explanation. He had simply disappeared and left them with nothing. My mother had been helping them financially for a while, but now she wanted out. So she sent Lila to me. The same man she had told to forgive his brother. The same man she had betrayed. The same man she now expected to clean up the mess. I told Lila no. I told her I was not responsible for this. I told her Jessie was not my child. I told her she had made choices and Mason had made choices and I was done paying for any of them. She started crying. She said she had nowhere else to go. She said she had spent what little money she had just getting there. I gave her some cash. Not because I wanted to become part of her life again. Because there was a child sitting there, confused and quiet, and I could not be completely cold in front of her. After they left, I sat alone for a long time. I kept thinking about how strange grief is. It does not always look the way you expect. Sometimes it shows up years later wearing a different face. Sometimes it is not even grief for the person who hurt you. Sometimes it is grief for the version of your life that never got to exist. I think what hurt most was not what they did. It was what it meant. It meant my brother had never respected me enough to stay away from what was mine. It meant Lila had looked me in the eye and lied while building a secret life behind my back. It meant my mother cared more about preserving the image of family than protecting the son who had been betrayed. And it meant my father, for all his kindness, had still let the wrong people decide what my forgiveness should look like. I learned something ugly about myself, too. I learned that I can be generous right up until the point where generosity becomes self-erasure. I learned that I confuse loyalty with endurance. I learned that I stayed too long in situations because I wanted to believe love could survive anything. It cannot. Not if the people involved stopped treating it with care. If I could go back, I would trust my instincts sooner. I would not let guilt convince me that ignoring the warning signs made me noble. I would not let my family talk me into carrying consequences that were never mine to carry, and I would never again mistake silence for peace. I want to give you an update because a lot has changed. After that visit, I finally called my dad and asked him directly why he gave Lila my address. He admitted my mother pushed him into it. He said they had both been trying to help her and Jessie, but that they thought seeing me might change something. I told him it changed everything between us. I told him not to contact me again unless it was truly necessary. I also found out where Mason was living. He had been staying with another woman a few towns away, acting like he had no responsibilities at all. I forwarded that information to Lila and told her to get a lawyer, file for divorce, and pursue child support before he disappeared again. That was the last real help I gave her. I sent a little money, enough to get by, not enough to build a life on. Then I told her not to come back to my door. I do not know if that was kind or cold. Maybe it was both. Maybe life after betrayal is just a series of choices that are never completely clean. I am still living in the same city. I still have my job. I still have my peace most days. But some nights I think about that little girl and the way she looked at me like I might be able to make the world make sense for her. I think about how none of this was her fault. And I think about how family can fail you in ways strangers never could. So I have to ask you, if your brother betrayed you, your parents sided with him, and years later his abandoned child showed up at your door, would you help anyway? Because I still think about it, and I genuinely do not know if I made the right call. Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and if you want more stories like this, you already know what to do.